Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you.
Welcome back to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. Today, I am joined by another Galactic sister, and I believe this is going to be an incredibly fascinating conversation. Starting her career as a neuroscientist and then going into cybersecurity as an executive, Glendy Yeung has shifted her life to focus on energy work, including vibrational wellness and energy self-defense. Welcome to the show, Glendy.
Lovely to be here, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So I kind of want to just get started with the energy self-defense. That is something that I haven't really had anybody on the show to talk about, and I want you to for somebody who's not familiar with energy work, energy self-defense, anything like that, kind of bring us up to speed as far as what that is, what are the techniques and just that the general ideas behind it.
I think by now science finally acknowledged that everything is energy. Our thoughts, our emotions, our physical body, your aches and pains, and even the chair that you're sitting on is the energy. Everything vibrates, everything moves. So with that comes with different levels of understanding who we are and also sometimes how things could go wrong. I think for a while now, we acknowledge that some aches and pains can come from our thoughts, from our emotions, right? Like we kind of finally understand there's a link between like, oh, wait a minute, that our headaches, it's caused by, like we're worried about something or whatnot, or our stress that having in our head, it actually causes our stomach being like flipping off all over the place. So I would add another dimensions of it is that because of this, that we are energy, and that means that we bring everything around us, that we are, the energy literally sitting around us like badges, whether it's happiness or like hatred or annoyance or whatnot, and it's interpenetrates the different layers of our body. So when we take this giant bubble with us, when we meet other people who also have whatever they have in their space and go to a location that also carry whatever energetics that based on the people activities from ancient stuff, from spirits, from, even other cycles of the universe. So when we mingle with those things, we pick them up depending on a lot of times who we are, what kind of resonance we have. Whether it's from this lifetime or from inherited on all the stuff that we don't see, but it's still encoded as part of our being. So the fun part is that when we meet anybody, when we even sitting in front of a group meditations of 5,000 people in front of your computer, energy mingles and there's no doors there. Things moves around. So instead of describing it of energetic energy, hygiene, like cleaning your teeth, right? We know to clean our teeth every day, more or less. It took how many years now that this becomes a habit. Working with our energies is the same thing because we have a tendency to pick things up, some a lot more than others. Like for those that would identify with empath, and some who have naturally psychic abilities, you may already know things, see things, sense things. And with that, it comes with a lot of dirt as well. So so instead of seeing it as like a cleanse, it's think of it as a self-defense because there's a lot of strategy need to be applied so that you don't get drained, you don't get like, physically feeling ill, or emotions or all kinds of things happening, ideas happening in your head. It's not even yours.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure if you are an empath or a psychic, you've definitely felt that energy, that stuff that stays with you after meeting somebody who, you just have that feeling. You have that gut feeling. Maybe you don't even know that you're an empath or you're psychic, but you have these gut feelings about somebody, and then you just feel worse after being in that, whether it's a person or, like you said, it can be a place or an energy vortex.
An object.
That these things happen. Exactly. It's all just energy. So it makes sense that you can pick up that frequency, that vibration. while being in it.
I want to take a minute from the show to share how you can support changing the channel. This show is my passion project, and if you feel called to support, the best place to start is by subscribing and sharing the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Next would be to check out my website in the show notes, where you can become a VIP of the show and get exclusive content not available anywhere else. Finally, you can engage with the Q&A and polls to have direct say in the direction of the show. I am forever thankful for your support. And now, back to the show.
So what would you recommend? Let's say you're just getting started in this journey. Like, what would be 2 or 3 tips that you can offer people for just a general hygiene or self-defense routine?
Yeah, when you first started, and a lot of people never even encounter the label empaths, exactly like you said. But they know that they kind of know what other people are thinking, even though the other person may be smiling in the face, but they kind of have a bad feeling about the other person, right? So for those people who are already innate, have like a sensitive to energy, that I would call, even though you may sometimes doubt yourself, thinking you are just happening in your head. The what Just as anything with energy, the very first things to actually develop as a skill set is the awareness. Is that neutral awareness of asking the questions, tuning in whatever ways that you develop this. Like the big question to ask is this mine or not? And once you're recognizing, wait a minute, it's not even mine, then it's much less easy. It's much easier to release them. And chances are, whether we're talking about an illness, a long chronic thing, or just a pop of emotions that comes in that out of nowhere, or thoughts that comes out of nowhere, chances are they're not ours. It happens all the time. So without learning, and to me, a lot of people, if you are sensitive, you really need to actually learn energy work, I feel like, because it's not just, it's something that you have to constantly have that ingrained in you, how to behave and react to it. But one thing that I really love one of the first tool that I give my clients and people I encounter who are actually sensitive to energy, one of the easy way to get rid of things that you have collected, knowingly, unknowingly, purposely or not, it's to take a salt bath. And no, not Epsom salt. I know when we talk about salt bath, we think like, go to bath, Bath and Body Work with like cutesy little bath bombs that made of Epsom salts and other. Not at all. I'm talking about kitchen salt. So you want to put in 1 to 2 pounds. Yes, pounds. A whole round, the whole cans of round can, like, 60 cents, $1, dump the whole thing in. And if you have essential oils, lavenders and frankincense are the ones that I use. And if you have an ocean in your backyard, jump right in. It has to do with our aura. It's very similar in substance of the water and the salt water. And that once you get into the salt water, with the intentions of sending like all this energy that you picked up, all the energetic core be dissolved and go into the salt. So as a crystal, think of you work with crystal. Yes, you can program them, you can instruct them. So that's where the magic comes in. So for a lot of empaths, taking like 1 to 2, if you're picking up a lot, if you always time have things swimming in your head, taking a bath like that once, if not twice a week, helps a ton. Dunk your head inside as well. Because again, it's all around us. It helps dissolve all those things. So that's a major one that I share. Yeah.
Wow, I never realized that salt was such a powerful cleanser, healer that can get rid of that the energy that you pick up. And I used to live by the ocean, so I very frequently went in. And now that I'm living in the middle of Texas, I haven't been in salt water in months. And yeah, I think this week I'm gonna go grab some salt and take a nice little bath and
Yeah.
try to get rid of all that energy that I've been picking up over the last couple of months.
Yeah. And I even have friends who are acupuncturists. And I noticed that acupuncturists, over the course of like 10 years, even though that we don't think of them as doing energy work per se, right? But what do you think coming out of the needle? Right. So I notice a lot of acupuncturists have a tendency to get burnt out. And that's because of the energy coming in. And I have several of them I know, they actually, once they work with the ocean, live next to the ocean, go into the ocean, surfing, they feel a ton better. And that they're able to have a much more balance attitude with their jobs and with their clients. So that's how important it
fascinating.
is to clean stuff that you didn't realize that you pick up. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other
Mhm.
tips that you have as far as just noticing the difference between what is you and what is not you?
Um, so this require like a neutral presence. So if you already have, I mean, if you're a meditator, and I think one of the next level work to do is actually work with your body,
Mm.
because this is it's not very very common, but sometimes and I think that's well when you those already have that meditative presence of that quietness, the next questions is to develop your own intuition, right? To kind of to be able to use that intuitions and apply it to any questions you ask. And that absolutely ties into energy clearing work and healing work, because a big part of it is intentions and your mind. It's to really work with your body. So one of another tip that another practice that I've been using a lot lately with my clients who are intuitive, who, picking up a lot of things, it's really to put their hands to really begin to have that nurturance, feeling, allow the body to feel that the caringness. Yes, we're listening to the patterns of the body. And from there, you can ask your questions.
Mm.
Is that chronic thing? And this extend beyond just the everyday energy. But this is another way to release it. So it's like you can ask, is this, is this situation mine? Whether it's a headache, it's a emotions, is this work situation, like a work life situation. Ask you, and this is by activating your physical intelligence to ask us to release it. And it's much faster to do so when you are able to, your body can give you the confirmation, like, no, it's not yours. So the skill has to do with recognizing patterns and trusting your body, trust activating your physical intelligence.
Right. Being conscious of what your body's experiencing, what your body's telling you, because it's always communicating with you.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
subconscious and unconscious is always communicating with the conscious mind. It just
Yeah.
a lot of times it ignores it. The conscious mind just ignores that and says, I need to
Hmm.
focus on this and this and this, and I'm not too concerned about that little feeling that's in there. And then we typically stuff it down, we put it way down, and then
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we do wanna bring it up, it's grown, it's gotten bigger, it's become, a bit of a monster at that point, and then now you're dealing with a monster instead of that initial as soon as that energetic tie or that energetic pattern gets into your body,
Hmm.
if you remove it immediately, within the first week or 2, right?
Yeah.
It it's a lot easier than if it's been in there for months or years
Oh,
or
yes.
decades.
Absolutely. And the body will keep on building more and more, like you said, building more signals. It's going to get louder, right?
Mhm.
And by the time that it's a lot harder when things become physical. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your perspective on the body? Like, is the body a receiver for energy that is taking all of these frequencies, all of the energy that is coming into that there's the basic idea that the subconscious mind is basically interpreting around 11 million bits of information every
Mhm.
second, right? All these energies that are hitting us, all these visible and invisible energies that are coming into our physical body. And the mind takes it and makes it into this, what we call reality. It's a distilled down version of all the things that are coming into our essence. So how, how do you is the body always giving you these signals and you're just ignoring them, or is the body gonna really tell you, and how does it kind of speak to you in a language that doesn't have words?
Yeah, I would by now, I mean, for those who are familiar with the energetic anatomy, so we have the physical body, the physical anatomy, there's an energetic anatomy, and different systems describing it in different ways. A lot of times, the different layers of aura, some describing it's like 5, 7, 10, 20 something layers, and there's all usually uh, a biological, no, so how would we put it? An etheric layer that's kind of molded after the physical body. There's And so the biofields by now, I actually would classify them like 7 layers in one system that I work with. The emotional fields, like 9 layers, and mental fields, another 5 or so. So, and then other systems you have studied with something similar, whether it's etheric, mental, emotional, spiritual, morphogenetic fields. However, it doesn't matter what how we classify them, how you look at it. Nonetheless, all those fields are what is processing, and that's what we sometimes consider subconscious. And they hit with the different layers of our past that we have, store, interacting with sometimes what you can think of as the energetic level of our DNA, that kind of holding a lot of the records and recording. And they interact with the physical layer that ties in more like electrochemical aspects of it. So when it's kind of interesting, I think for a lot of people who started this spiritual journey, they would go from like, oh, the body's bad, the emotions are bad, and then, oh, there's limiting beliefs. So we put ourselves in limiting beliefs, right? And then we want to be like, oh, the spiritual, whatever that may be, and that's what we chase after. And I think by now, it's kind of reversing, right? We're actually coming back to the somatic practice. We'd forgotten the physical intelligence. We didn't realize that all the things that we store, like in the body, keeping score and actually interconnecting with those signals set in these fields that as representations of it coming out. And also with its own physical intelligence. And actually, some would describe that there's a body elemental that we actually, it's almost like you have your mind and you have this other thing, the being that's called the body elemental, that you almost have to communicate with them constantly to have that harmony. And when you're fighting with them, ignoring the signal, and they keep on making it louder, right? You're doing the opposite of what it wants, and that's where the havoc comes in. So, however you describe that interactions, nonetheless, there's a conscious part, like our conversation part, right? The will to actually make choices, and and at the same time, the will to actually connect. That consciously, hey, I am listening. Like I'm trying to, tone it down. I'm looking at the patterns. We're looking at it. We are, observing it. And there's a lot of practices can help transmute some of these energy in the physical body.
Is there a recommendation as far as how often you should maybe be doing these practices, trying to tune into the body, trying to clear out the energy?
It really depends on the individual. I have worked with people who are sensitive to energy. They are like a sponge. They're like bounty, paper towel. To me, they need to work with energy every day. I mean, I don't see much of a choice giving how, the robocycle aspect of it. And also part of it is also practice. The more that you do, you can do it faster versus that you think that you can just clean it once in a while. You're not as efficient. So there's that efficiency that comes into play. I personally by now try to do like I don't do 100% what I like my height, if I'm doing perfect, right, for my goal for now. But for a lot of people, well, we pick up stuff while sleeping, believe it or not. So when we wake up, a lot of time people wake up in groggy. And some people are more so than others. And that's when it requires more cleaning. We want to clean up stuff that might have come into our conscious, subconscious, however you call it, that actually affecting how we function in daytime. And then over the course of the day, we interact with things, we watch things on the internet, we talk about things, we eat things, we go to places, we meet people. So before you go to bed, you want to clean them out as well so that things don't get fester and get bigger. So if anybody it's kind of serious about this work or notice that there's a need for it, because a lot of people don't, right? Then like a morning and nighttime, as little as 5 minutes, as much as an hour. So it's up to the individual to begin slowly acknowledge and develop. And I would also say that sometimes if you know what it happens, take care of it right then it may take several seconds, 10 seconds. That may save some big cleaning later on.
Yeah, I've noticed that in myself. I will get I've been driving Uber for just making a little bit of extra money right now, and somebody will get into the Uber and it's this energy. It's just like, holy cow. So I'll take a minute, I'll drop them off and I'll take a minute and just say, let's clear this out, get rid of it. And then I can move on to the day. And if I don't, then it stays with me. And I notice that my mental framework, like my mentality changes if I leave that energy inside of me.
Very accurately describing it. And I think if people really pay attention, if that happens to them, like what you described, they may notice that actually happen more often than they realize. And something
Right.
can be done as simple as like what you described. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. So what starts to happen as you start to clear your energy body out, your subconscious mind, you get rid of the patterns, you start to become this clearer vessel, right?
hmm
From your perspective, what happens to the human being at that point? Like as you really start to clear everything out?
I think part of it has to do with what the person's come in with. I have, as we notice, there are people like they're very drama prone, or that it's not anything that of their doing, but things just kind of happens, right? Whether it's people surrounding them that kind of pull their attentions, or thing just sort of bad luck, quote unquote. So as we, depending on who you are, and as we dive into that, we become clear as even just think about meditations, right? A lot of people start coming into it with the purpose of relaxations or less stress. And yeah, they may get those benefits, but part of it, the result being that there's less thoughts in their mind. There's less thoughts that are not theirs in their mind. They may recognize the body. It may be easier to recognize any patterns in the body. And that's when we kind of play our own detectives to actually clean out things that we brought in. We may recognize some family patterns that, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to participate in. So the authenticity of who we are and how we want to show up may become more louder, instead of chasing down like, okay, we have to do this because that's how it's supposed to be, right? How it's supposed to function and act. So in during the clearing work, I would hope that, and I also do see it, that people become more of themselves.
Right. Who they
And
were when they came into this
Mhm.
iteration, when they came into this incarnation and
Yeah.
start living that life out, start living out the life that they were meant to live, right?
Yeah, yeah. And even on a day-to-day level, they've begun to recognize, wow, I actually feel like myself versus like a fog. Yeah.
Yeah. Being pulled in multiple different directions by different ideas, thoughts, patterns, and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more about the idea that your thoughts can come from you and can come from other beings, other energies, other places, and all of
Yeah.
that. How do you kind of conceptualize that um with your uh, the people in your programs?
Well, I'll give you two examples, my personal examples. When part of my training is as a Tibetan Buddhist day, and that every day we write down 6 times a day, we actually track our thoughts. And something positive, something negative, and then we write down, oh, wait, the negative as in, oh, we did bad, like quote unquote bad, right? Oh, we shouldn't have done that. More like a regret, like, oh, it's silly, we shouldn't have done that. And for a little while, I would notice that, like, very thoughts that are very extremely uncharacteristic. Like, let's say, for example, like, oh, so and so, that's she looks really ugly with that dress. And when I notice that have that thought, I'm like, I don't. It's not even like a secret thought. I don't do that. It's not me. And it took me many years, much later, when I study some of the things that I investigate into, I recognizing those, literally, those are not my thoughts. And because we have a lot of different cohabitants in our energetic space, that a lot of times actually kind of fuel in a lot of our thoughts and emotions. This one is external pointing, but some of them are internal pointing.
Right.
And you can only imagine all the self-limiting thoughts that beat ourselves up. Like, sometimes it's ours, sometimes not. But think about the detriments that it's causing us, right, when we believe them. The second example I'll give you, I was traveling to Greece. I was in the big group retreats, hundreds of people at a beautiful beachside hotel. And whenever I travel, I have all kinds of preparations along the way, and certainly as the hotel rooms that I'm staying. So I was a little sloppy because I was, excited to see everybody, and I set up my thing, and I just like ran out of the room. And it was like a 4 or 5 day retreat, but like a couple days in, I noticed one night I need to book a ticket to another island because I got invited to join, see the other part of Greece. I was so excited. And the internet, horrendous slow. And so I was in my room at 2 in the morning trying to get my ticket. I become I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get this ticket. Oh my God, this is ridiculously slow. I'm going to be left behind with my luggage. I saw myself with my luggage on the road by myself. I'm going to get robbed. I'm going to get raped. And after a while, and I got so upset and angry and scared and everything. And I'm like, wait a minute, that is not me. And it's absolutely not me. I don't think like that. And I just kind of like shut my computer and just went to bed. I'm like, you know what? Let me check with my friends. Something is not right. And I was already doing energy healing by then, but and the next thing I, check in with my the most clairvoyant friend at the retreat. I'm like, okay, what is in my room? And then they're like, oh yeah, there's something really old there. So we took care of it, and it's fine.
Hmm.
So I thought those thoughts were mine for a while I was going through it, you see, until I recognizing, whoa, wait a minute.
Those were not your thoughts. Those were
No,
this other
no.
being's thoughts that were
Yeah.
connecting into your conscious mind, basically.
And a big part of it's then you'll be asking, like, why? I mean, I can give you many reasons for that, why that happens. But one of them that could be more prominent, think about that. Sometimes when we think of ourselves as human as the top level of the food chain, well, we eat food. We think about food all day long. But for beings set on a different level that doesn't have physical body, some of their sustain on emotions as substance. So some of those different types of beings that we're talking about, different classifications, they would invoke, whether, they can invoke emotions so that they have sustenance for themselves.
That is a fascinating idea that I think we could get into a little bit more.
Hmm.
The idea that there are beings that exist, not in our five sense reality, right? They're
Hmm. Yeah.
outside of the five senses.
Hmm.
Some people can feel into them with their sixth sense, with their
Uh-huh.
third eye when it's open. But the idea that they're here to feed off of our energy, and oftentimes it's the stronger energies that they're feeding off of. So the fear, the anger, the pain, the suffering, the hate, and that's the good food for them. So
Hmm.
how did you get into that idea, that understanding? Where does this kind of come from?
It evolves over time, and it kind of goes back a little bit of uh, my own personal trajectories of coming through different spiritual systems, communities, and how that connected. I'll tell you a story about the opposite direction. So sometimes it's not just the negative thoughts being as food. Even the positive, like emotions and meditations, can be food as well, as told through some of spiritual systems that actually, like in a more like a smaller group conversation that kind of took place. So some of these are, I came across as like teachers, mentors, and be able to see it happens. And it's just not one time, two times, three times, but it's from a very many different traditions, from many different angles. Um, I'll give you another idea, another thoughts about that. A lot of people talk about hungry ghosts being hungry for whatever reason that they got left behind. They couldn't go where they need to go, or they exist, or you believe in ghosts, kind of thing. And some of these ghosts have really long snouts, and they can't eat, but they like to gather around, like, think barbecue places, because they still have that sense of smell, and they use that. And it's interestingly, growing up as Chinese, we do offerings for ancestors. Think of the incense. Think of the roast pig and roast pork, the roast duck. That's what we offer to the ancestors, knowing unknowingly. That's what they appreciate and whatnot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very that's a new perspective for me. I've not heard that one. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. Um So yeah, I kind of want to get into we were talking pre-show about kind of the galactic origins and a little bit the idea of, the walk-in, and that's kind of been my experience for the last 2 years. I had a walk-in experience, and it shifted how my reality how I viewed reality, how I viewed this entire reality, where we were, what my level of understanding was. The idea that I was just a human became, you know,
Mhm.
untenable to me. It's like I'm a spiritual being, I'm a galactic being, I'm all the way up, and I'm interested to hear your galactic origins and what your how you kind of got into those.
Hmm. Growing up from Chinese family, originally I'm from Hong Kong, I already have like a cultural understanding of like reincarnations or spirits. Because even a lot of culture, that's not even something that they acknowledge or recognize as something possible. And I remember I was young, even as young as 6 years old. I was like, wait a minute, like, how can this smart scientist think that the only way a life form exists has to have water and oxygen?
Hmm.
I'm like, that makes no sense. And I was only six. I remember clearly remembering that. And fast forward, you go through the schooling and you just kind of left all those behind. But as I was beginning diving into, um, the more fun aspect of I wouldn't even call it spirituality, but like you begin to go into like the astrology, the tarot cards, your spirit guides, and your or channeling. Yeah. So there's we kind of acknowledging yes, there's something bigger out there. And for me, all the breadcrumbs that I got over time, with whether it's like a little bit insight from each systems or people that I spoke to or interact with or study or the inner recognition, it's comes through really, really slow, like slow drip. But it kind of add up onto a little bit, wait, what doesn't make sense? Like, wait a minute. And I think a big one that came through was an experience I had with in ayahuasca. And I remember, and I only did like a before it got popular, and I have no psychedelic experience at all. I'm like, well, some star people teaching you the secret of the universe and heal you. I'm like, that sounds fantastic. Now I have a different kind of take on those things now. But I remember like all the past lives in front of me, and I don't even care. And I was like, wow, like I would want to know all those things, or I used to think I would know, but in that state, it was very clear to me that no, that's not even important. And and through that experience, I see a lot of things that are obviously not on Earth. And then and another QHHT hypnosis type thing, and the scene that shows up, it's totally on another planet, sci-fi. I was talking like it was very detailed, and it was so ridiculous that I can't even make it up if I want to. It was like a consciousness loaded in a robot, that type of situation, and it was
Oh wow.
way sci-fi. Yeah. So and a friend of mine who's all of our spiritual friends talking, she was kind of planted in me like, no, I think you had some galactic, like, you've done a lot of galactic war, and it felt right. Don't know what that meant at the time, but just kind of like a dot. All these little experiences I described kind of put a dot there. And it was interestingly when I've done a lot of readings, whether it's psychic readings and any type of intuitive readings and channelings, I don't get a lot of good infos. And a lot of times me and my friend will go see the same person, and she get all kinds of boatload of really helpful informations about like circumstances or what to do and what's the future supposed to be like. And I got like waffling, like very generic stuff. And she always laughed like, oh, your guy sucks. and, and and then not until, fast forward and that until pretty recently, that I think, and some of us, I think for a while, actually, for me, I was like, wow, if I know where I come from, then I'll get the answer because there's all this information. People who say out there, if you're this from this star systems, from that star system, from that, and this is the traits, the characteristic. And as I dive deeper, I notice it's not that clean. It's not that clean cut at all. The galactic history is a lot more complex than that. And chances are we are much older than we are. And I thought I'm like, well, maybe some people are Earthlings. That's why they're more grounded. And they're people like from the star. Like, no. Kind of everybody you can say actually has has some kind of galactic history, if you will.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And even though like, yeah, I have people tell me, oh, I have this, the common ones, the Pleiadians, the Sirians, and Orions and whatnot. But that's still not my story. It's only because we've been recycling through the systems for a long, long, long time for a very specific reason. Right, wrong, different. I'm from a parallel universe that doesn't even exist anymore. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Putting all these things back together from like, how come, like a lot of people doesn't register my energy. And that's kind of all my life. I kind of noticed that as well. And it's very, so there's a lot of things and little things whether on a human level or information level that I have gathered or things that I've studied, pick it up and put down. That it's everything that each person has touched on, each person intrigued on, gives you a little bit of breadcrumbs that you register or finishing your karmic your karma, if you will, right? And give you pieces of story. And I'm still continuing piece it more and more together. But the picture is getting clear. But definitely it's taken like for me 20 years, and I'm sure there's a lot more things to uncover. That's just the top layer of it.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And 20 years, that's a long journey to go from, again, these little breadcrumbs. Because I've had a very similar experience as well. It's just been truncated into the last 2 years or so. I did a QHHT, basically past life regression and was on, this failing alien planet, and everything was crumbling down around me. I was Arcturian at that point. So definitely feel connections to that. I've connected with Pleiadian energy. I've been able to connect with other energies that I don't even really have names for them. It's this energy that I'm able to experience. So yeah, it's been fascinating to kind of see, and I like that perspective. That I think that's why we kind of come here. That's why we come to this incarnation, is to really piece together all these different things. Because I don't know, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of other places in the galaxy or the universe where there are so many different collections of different beings all in one single place. And that's maybe just my perspective, but it does seem like the Earth is just this collection of so many different backgrounds and races and understandings and people who are, just figuring things out for themselves. And it's a fascinating place to be. And as we start to get into this Earth where a lot more people have a better understanding of their past lives, their incarnations, the past life trauma that they've experienced, their generational and just continued trauma throughout their existence, as a soul, as an oversoul, as a angelic being, as a galactic being. And that's kind of why we're here. We're here to kind of work all that stuff out, work that trauma out. The human body, like you said, there's 20 plus layers where the emotions, the feelings, the memories, all of that stuff exists in this physical body that we have access to if we can gain the conscious access to it. And that it creates this healing effect. It creates this knowing that you have this inside of you. And then if you're doing the work, you're able to heal that aspect of yourself. So for me, at least, it feels like this is a really good place to come and heal those traumas that we've been experiencing for many, 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 many lives. And whatever planet, whatever iteration, whatever incarnation we've been in, we just haven't been able to heal that. So you come to the Earth School, you come to this very advanced level of reality to get those last bits out. And then at some point, we kind of move towards a little bit of a higher iteration. And I don't know what your perspective is on like the shifting consciousness of the planet. I'd love to kind of understand what your thoughts are on that. But, from my perspective, the planet wants to move away from being this melting pot of all different levels of consciousness and move a little bit more towards a more unified consciousness. So that's kind of where we're at in the timeline of the Earth. And that's the whole 3D to 5D transition and where we are on this in the time space continuum of the planet right now. So would love to kind of get your take on what is happening on the planet. Where are we moving towards something, or is this just a story that we're telling ourselves and it's a fun game we get to play in this third dimension?
Yeah, and I think, for those of you who have been interested in, if you've ever been interested in topic, I'm sure you have already heard from different variations through different channels, different teachers, or different, people who have their particular perspective, however they got the information from, whether it's directly channeling, their highest aspect, or, and whatnot. My information it tells a very different story. So, but part of it, like before I even share that, I think we have to acknowledge that one, people are on different timelines, literally. Two, people are on different teams. So I've been calling all this stuff spiritual mafia. And if you're, whichever your source or you participate based on the law of participation, like you kind of buy into a little bit of that timeline or that team. And some of the timelines we're in, for example, are not necessarily we choose to. It just kind of impose on us because of, like, I live in New York. There's something happened 20 something years ago, and with the towers, and actually some kind of portals open along with what we saw, and that kind of impact our daily living for the next 20 years, and it's still impacting us, right? So some of the timelines we just impose on us. Some of them it's we choose. So but depending on which spiritual mafias we kind of like bought into and under, the stories that we get told might be different. Like you said, right? There's this 3D, 5D thing. A lot of people are like, oh, are we on? We just have to think 5D. We'll kind of go beyond our lower nature and the peace and loving, and then we're gonna be all set. Everybody, we're winning. And then we kind of have to be like, wait a minute, look at the reality just from our regular, normal, human logical mind. And then for those that would have the capacity and connections, and actually all of us should even test, truth test it. What is really what is the behind the scene, what is the actual behind the scene that what we're not seeing, the layers of the understanding. So some of the information or where I'm coming from, I'm seeing that like we're obviously going a big shift. That's no doubt about it. And whether I'll just use climate change as an example, just as one dot on this whole spectrum of change. So some people can see that climate change is caused by humans, by human activities, and therefore it need to be, stopped and shift gear so that we don't go down to the abyss. Or you can see that climate change is happening, but is caused by man-made events that make it so that we can use the climate change as a reason to control the narrative to do something else, pushing at the other agenda. And it's interesting. About 10, maybe even more 10 plus years ago, I've already gotten the memo that climate change is normal. The Earth is doing its thing,
right? And
the Earth knows what is doesn't mean that the human stuff being done are good. Doesn't mean that the humans are the stuff doing that shouldn't be stopped. The bad behaviors, pollutings, and etc. But nonetheless, the core shift that's happening that we see, the sun has shifted earlier this year, and even without any spiritual knowing, I got burned now in a cloudy day for half an hour. When I was a kid, I can be in the sun all day long. So, there are things that are more obvious than not. So this is just one aspect of it. And to me, the Earth is going through more of like a devastation cycle on its own. And the spiritual mafias, different factions, it's who are here. There's a lot that left, a lot new comes in. And then everybody has their angle of, and I like the way that how you started the conversations about going into more unison, and And the challenge that I have about that is whose idea of this unison?
Right.
And I'm, and is it, again, the good, the definition of good, it depends on who look at it.
Hmm.
And sometimes that we can agree on, but there are a lot of times in the different layers, it's maybe a lot more, there's a lot more nuance in that. But one thing I think I would say is that regardless of what is the story, at the end of the day, it's our choice and our will that help us to continue to make the evolution that we want to make here on an individual level. And once you're able to anchor that idea, embodiments of that, then you can affect your reality energetically and affect your community energetically. And I think
Yeah.
that is what we would want to go toward one way or another.
Yeah. That's the whole basis behind what changing the channel is. It's the idea that the internal reality is creating the external reality, and you are tuning into whatever external reality that you want to tune into based on your internal reality. So if you want to change the world, you want to create this massive effect, you got to change who you are, who you're being inside. The vibration that you're projecting out into the world is attracting exactly what you are experiencing from that external world. So yeah, like you said, the more you can get rid of all the things that are not a part of you, that are
Mm-hmm.
not your energetic patterns, that
Mm-hmm.
you're here to experience this reality from a certain perspective, so that you can learn lessons at a soul level or even higher than that. Like, you're here to learn these lessons, and the more you can tune into your natural being, the better those lessons
Mm-hmm.
are able to be learned, the easier they're able to be learned. And instead of learning from making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, you
Mm-hmm.
can learn from intuition. You can learn from,
Mm-hmm.
seeing ahead of time. Oh, if I go down this road, this is a potential problem that's going to exist. So you backtrack and go down and make an easier choice to learn that lesson, to experience that experience that you're meant to have. So yeah, this is shifting how I'm thinking about reality a little bit myself. And I really appreciate, that perspective, that it's all just the story that you're kind of telling yourself inside of your head.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, I hope, like, even if the more work that we do on ourselves, I hope that the more uh, we are bringing connections through resonance, what it's closer to our own personal missions and purpose in the first place. That kind of like will be more in align. So there's a lot of alignment talk, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so that become, our lives become more meaningful. And
So
as a change, as all this
yeah.
change.
So I think, would you agree that there's thousands of different pathways that each soul can go on when they come to this planet?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more. I like that you bring up the idea of that. Yes, like this is a school here, but I've also been talking about, has been spoken of, like, yes, it's a school, but it's also kind of like a farm
Mm.
and also like a prison in some way. So and we kind of have to look at all three at the same time. So how can we do the work that we do? And I'm not talking about, satisfying the society requirements of, getting a good degree, getting a good job, and surviving. Yes, those things has to happen because that's the fundamental. You play Monopoly. There's a game board, right? It's already set up that way. But eventually, we can go beyond the game. Until then, right? Then while we how much can we leverage what we do here to step away into that higher, the different level, the different levels of that um, video games.
Right. And
Yeah,
and we're able to change that game as we're playing it as well. Like,
absolutely.
the rules don't have to stay the same. We can change the game whenever we want, as
Yeah,
long as enough people consciously make that decision.
yeah.
And I think that's where we're moving towards. This
Hmm.
this is my hypothesis, is that as we as we understand that we're able to create the game, right now there's a
Hmm.
pretty small percentage of the population that
Yeah.
believe they might think that they can change the game, but do they believe and do they take actions to change that game? It's a
Yeah.
very small percentage. So as more and more people start to awaken to the fact that they are creating this game, that they are creating this reality through
Hmm.
their thoughts and through their beliefs, I think it starts to move towards a more decentralized situation, a more open source, decentralized, in every aspect, in the business aspect, in how
Hmm.
we make money, I think in the healthcare and, um, again, I don't like the word healthcare. I think it's,
Hmm.
health. It should just be health. How do
Yeah.
we become healthy people?
Yep.
Not how do we take care of sick people? It's how do we become healthy people? And each different iteration, there's probably 5 or 6 other ones that need to be more decentralized. Again, the whole idea of money
Hmm.
decentralizing, that seems to make sense. And again,
Yeah.
how do we do that? And that's kind of the hypothesis for me, is
Mm.
this is what happens as more and more people become the creators, co-creators of this game that we're playing.
Yeah.
We move away from this top-down system. And again, I think that top-down system kind of made sense when there was only not even it was a fraction of 1% of the population were creating this game for everybody else, because
Hmm.
nobody else believed that they could create the game, right?
Right.
So as we move away from that, and it's just
Hmm.
that was one iteration of the game, and now we're moving to a new iteration of the game, and this game continues to move up and up and up. Um, as more and more people are creating that game, we change the rules of the game, and that is where we're at in humanity. That's the 3D life that we're supposed to be living, right?
Yeah. And I think a big part is also a little bit surprise to me. A surprise and not surprise to me is in my own personal journey in my timeline to discover that a big part of this game it came from
Right.
somewhere else, right? Because there's a lot of like, why is things just like that? Why can we not change? So stuck because a lot of it is it's literally come from elsewhere, and it's still being controlled and run from elsewhere, not from the surface level. So yeah, it's so important for us to, as this shifts is happening, to kind of gain footing. And a big part of it is doing our own personal evolution work. The more that we can gain back our own original, remember who we are truly, the powers, I mean, it's the gifts and the powers. Yes, that's not the point, but right. But if you don't even have those things, right, you don't have the skill, if you will, whether it's the mental skill or the emotional skill, whether it be to quiet down, maybe to recognize what's not yours. Those inner battle, this is spiritual warfare we're talking about. Like it's those inner battle can translate into ability to actually take those actions externally.
Right. And I think maybe we kind of adjust, as above, so below. Also works as below, so above. So if we do the inner work, if we create this massive ripple effect, right, in the cosmos, those higher level energies feel that they actually are impacted by it. Now, I'm sure it's not as impactful. It's certainly not as impactful as the energies come down into this reality. They're going to impact us on a very subconscious level, and they're going to really affect us. And if, as we send, positive, higher energy up into the higher realms, it's going to have a less effect on those beings, because those beings are operating from a dimension that the human mind really struggles to even understand. It's hard to understand what's above this third dimensional reality from our limited perspective as a five sense being. Um, it's really only feeling into the intuition where we can get an idea, and then to put that into language is very difficult as well, to kind of teach that to other people. So
And a lot of the spiritual, I mean, I would just use the word spiritual work, quote unquote. But it's really about being able to pierce the seal that we have, and so that we can actually access other timelines and access other reality, and so that we can actually see and know from ourselves directly, to do those cleanup and what is true versus like games of telephone. Yeah.
right, trying to
Hmm.
listen to something and hope that you're, again, in the game of telephone, like, I imagine a dirty vessel, a human body that has a bunch of distortion in it, a bunch of negative energies that are impacting it. It's like having, you can barely hear out of your ear and you're trying to play this game of telephone.
Yeah.
That the information that's coming through is
Yep.
getting distorted and you can
Mhm.
barely understand what it's saying. And as it's hard to take action on something like that.
Yeah.
So excellent. Well, Glendy, this has been a wonderful conversation. I have truly enjoyed it. I think we kind of got into some good starts for people who are just getting in on their journey and some really thought-provoking ideas as people start to advance down their path and start to really think about what does it mean to be in the 3D while also having access to 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, these higher aspects. And again, the dimensions is just another word that we're putting on top of something that is kind of difficult to put into words. But, the
Mhm.
idea that we're at some level of reality and there's multiple levels above us that all are interplaying into how this reality is actually being affected. So, I really appreciate the conversation. If there is anybody who is looking to practice or get involved with what you're teaching, where's the best way to reach out or get a hold of you?
My website, glendyyeung.com, or find me up on Instagram, is glendyyeung.com. And as I said, a lot of these things start with just clearing yourself out. So one of the programs I have is on energetic self-defense. And these are the different layers of learning how to clean yourself up in the different ways. And then from there, doing energy clearing work. Be able to fine-tune your intuitions and ask questions and ask the questions on your own. That'd be very practical for everyday living, as well as you discover your multidimensional reality.
Beautiful. I will make sure I clip those in the notes. And if anybody is looking to work with Glendy, they will be down in the show notes. So I really appreciate it. I hope that we get to have another conversation coming up in the future because this was very enlightening for me and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me. I love this conversation, Joe.
Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.